Okay, we're up to Daf Chaf Vav Amid Beis. Chaf Amid Beis. The Mishnah had stated that the Sudas Havra and Chalamoid is eaten on usually you eat it on the bed that's turned over. Here you'd eat it on a bed that is kufa, that is standing up. Today we're going to get into all the halachas of turned over beds. Tan Rabbanan. We're 4 lines from the bottom on Chaf Vav Amid Beis. Someone goes to the house of an Avel. Liboy gas means you're very comfortable with the guy. You know, this is your friend. You feel very comfortable with him. This is your soulmate. So you can go ahead and eat the sudas havra on a turned over bed, like the oval. If not, the Yiddish term bakant, you're not so bakant with him, you're not so comfortable with him, then you should make the sudas havra. Again, they would join with sudas havra. The sudas havra is provided by everybody else. The oval, as we're going to see, cannot go ahead and eat from his own food the first suda. It's called the sudas havra. So in that case, they would go ahead and they would, if they're not bakant with the person, so close to the person, they would eat on a normal bed while the oval eats on the turned over bed. Rava Isra Milsa Rava. Kartum and Milsa, meaning that's lashon of that an Indian of Avelis. Oil legabe Abba Bar Marta. Abba Marta showed up. The who Abba Bar Menyume. This at the same person as Abba Bar Menyume. So guys, these are 2 different names. Bar Marta means his mother's name, Marta, and his father's name was Menyumi. So the same. So in other words, sometimes in Shas it's Abba Bar Marta, sometimes it's Abba Bar Menyumi. Be aware it's the same individual. Like just mentioned the mother's name and the father's name. Rava Zakif. Rava turned over his bed to eat, and Bar Marta coffee, and Bar Marta then turned it over. So Rava Zakif, and Bar Marta coffee, he turned it back over, like he wanted to eat with Rava. So Amar Kama less be daito lahit sumar rabbanon. So this young Talmid Chacham doesn't know what he's doing, right? That he's going ahead and he's going ahead and turning over the bed to eat me. I guess he thought his liboy was gas with Rava. He thought he was like close to Rava to be able to eat on the turned over bed, and Rava obviously did not feel that way. Just when you thought you're a friend, not so fast. A person's traveling from place to place. So if he's able to be mamayed in his business dealings, and then notice what happens is he's going from place to place, and he becomes a novel. He hears about Avelis, and so we said that a person is not supposed to do malacha. We said he could do business if it's a dover avod, a tremendous amount, a big loss because he's not doing physical labor. We discussed this, and now we're trying to be mamayed as much as possible, right? However, if you can't go ahead and not do business, you galgeli mohem. He should go ahead and do business with other people, so it should kind of be swallowed up among them, not distinctly different. Tanrabanan. Again, the halacha of kfiyas amita, turning over the bed, that was one of halachas of avelis, like ripping your clothing. They used to turn over the bed. So the halacha of turning over the bed is mishiyetz pesach beso. As soon as the mace leaves the house, you turn over the bed. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says no. Mishiyistam goylo, when the goylo is what is sasam. Machlekes Rashi and Taisus throughout Shas. Rashi says when you put the slab on. Taisus says when you put the tzion up. Ma'aser shemeis Rabbi Gamliel Zaken. Rabbi Zaken was nifta. Kimu shiyasim pesach beisai. As soon as they took him out of the house, Amalhem Rabbi Eliezer said, "Kafi mitaysechem. Go ahead and turn over your bed. That's his shita." However, since the goyel was the grave was covered over, Amalhem Rabbi Yeshua came and he disagreed with Rabbi Eliezer. He agreed with he came back home and he said, "Kafi mitaysechem. Go ahead, and turn over your beds." They said to Rabbi Yeshua, "Kvar kafinu al pizakim." We already acted upon the psak of the zaken of Rabbi Eliezer to go ahead and turn over the bed as soon as he left the house. So again, we have a sugya today of turning over the bed. We don't turn over beds. We said earlier in the Masechta, the chayish for kishuf, that paganism, that people would be concerned that we have different people in the house who would understand it, and therefore we don't go ahead and turn over beds. It's not done. We sit on small chairs, but we do not go ahead and turn over beds. Tan Rabbanan, me'emasai zoikmenes amitos. Erev Shabbos, at which point in time, Erev Shabbos, we know that there's no Avelis in Shabbos. So which point in time on Erev Shabbos do we straighten out the bed? That was like if the bed that had been turned over, then a mincha l'mayla, right? From mincha and above, mincha katan, mincha gedola, right? The Mukayah says Mincha Katana, which is what 9.5 hours into the day. Amar Rabbi Barafuna. Despite the fact that the bed is turned over, he should not sit on the bed until evening. In other words, he's preparing for not being misabel on Shabbos, but nonetheless, until it gets dark, do not go ahead and sit on the overturned bed in the normal way. Well, the Moed Shabbos, now Moed Shabbos, you have to invert the bed, right? You have to go ahead and put it back because it is avelus now. Even though Sunday morning he's getting up, we pass like Abishol guys that what mixes ayom kikuloi, right? He packs like Abishol that mixes ayom kikuloi is going to get up. Then chayzev kaifa, you go back and the fact that it's only going to be one morning, you're going to go back chayzev kaifa and turn it over. You go back and turn it over. So good. So again, we're discussing the halachas of kfiyas hamita. We're one line before it gets wide and chav zayin amid aleph. One line before it gets wide and chav zayin amid aleph. Tan rabbanan. Someone who turns over his bed, not only his own particular bed, he turns over any bed that's in his house. He turns over, guys, any bed that's in his house, he turns over. In other words, any bed, you have your house of 10, 20 beds, whatever you have to turn them all over. That's the halacha of kaif mitasai. Even if you have 10 beds in 10 places, even if it's not in his house. Guys, 10 beds in 10 places, even if it's not in his house. 10 beds in 10 places, even if it's not in his house. In other words, you and your mind are saying 10 rooms in the house. No. They had small houses, 10 apartments. In other words, if he has they had small houses. They don't have the houses like we have. Wherever those houses are, you would turn it over, no matter where. Kaifes kulon, you go ahead and you turn them over. Right? Does that mean like everybody in the house has to sleep on it, or is it just him? You have to turn over the beds. That's it. You turn over the beds. I don't know where they're going to sleep, but you turn over the beds. You turn over the beds. Again, a person who's not an oval obviously does not have to sleep on, But kaifes mitasai. Fafilu chamisha achin. Even if you have 5 brothers, umeis echad kulan kaifim. Even if they're not in the base oval, even the brothers, the chiddush over here, even the brothers are not in base oval, they have to turn over their beds wherever they are. If it's a mita that wasn't used for lying upon it, but was put kalim vessels upon it, ain't tzarich l'kfaisa, then you wouldn't have to go ahead and turn it over. Dargish, we'll see what that is in a sec. Ain't tzarich l'kfaisa, you don't have to turn over the dargish, ela zaykfa, you would stand it up. In other words, you wouldn't keep it in an upright position, in the normal position. You wouldn't turn it over, but you would stand it up against the wall. Picture like a cot, guys, and standing it up against the wall. Now, we don't even know what a dargish is. However, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel disagrees. He says you don't have to stand the dargish up. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, dargish mate es katbitov. You go ahead and take out its loop. The dargish, whatever it is, seem to have been ropes connected to the frame of wood. You undo the loops and the what instead of standing it up. So now you have just a frame of bed without any mattress or any support there because it's on the ground. My dargish, what exactly is a dargish? So Amma Ula says Ula, Arsa de Gada. Very geschmack. What's an Arsa de Gada? Let's see Rashi. Arsa de Gada, 3 lines from the top. Mita shemiyachtin isa lemazel tav. A mita that you set aside for good mazel. Ve'im mishtamshin ba klum, but you don't use it for anything. El miyachtin isa, you leave it. Lishreis mazel tov aleha. That mazel tov should be shaira on this bed. So it's a very interesting shaila. Why isn't this nichush? Why isn't this darkei moiri? Right? This is a mother thing. Can you imagine in a Jewish house? Kids come for Shabbos, they lie down. No, that you can't sleep in that bed. That bed's the mazel bed. That bed's for mazel. So the Ran I'll give you my Marmakim, and now I'll tell you a crazy maisa that happened to me today. Mamish a crazy maisa. Sometimes you get this kiss from Hashem. It's wild. The Ran says that chas v'shalom. He says this would be darkei moiri. The person to have a bed for mazel, it's superstitious. It's nichush. It's not. It doesn't. There's an isolation nachashu. You're going to believe this bed's going to bring me mazel. That seems the same thing as what walking underneath a ladder or having something fall from your mouth or a deer and all the different superstitions that we saw that are rasa as we attract through Shas. So now, the Ran has a problem with this. So the Ran said the following. The Ran said that this was not for mazel. They would have a bed or a table set aside that wouldn't be used to show your ashiras. In other words, if you had a few bucks, if you had a few dollars, you would go ahead by showing your wealth by setting aside something, you have a summer home you never go to. These rich guys, they have the place in the summer, they hate the country, so they don't go there, but they have one because everyone else has one, So the same thing, you had a table, and this table is bed. No, that's what the Ran says. However, I found in the Mesifta, the Sefer Hasidim. Now, unfortunately, I have to contact the Mesifta. I used to post it online. It seems that I read the copyright over there. It seems he doesn't want it done. So I have to get right to do it. But he quoted the Sefer Hasidim, and I happen to own a Sefer Hasidim. Not that I've ever seen it in years, but I know I own one, right? I know I have one. Not that, stop it. Now this is Rabbi Yehuda Chassid. It's not your Hasidim, Baruch. Gosh.
A lot of Chassidish Torah lately from I think someone transformed later a lot of Chassidish Torah.
No, but listen, no, guys, listen to this crazy story. Listen to this is a crazy story. So I went looking for a sefer, the Shiyar Mitzvah Balacha on Hilchos Brachos. That I knew I had. Now I moved a few years ago. I don't have most of my Sfarim are in a basement in Inwood. So I kept the Sfarim I need. I go looking for this, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, what do I find? Sefer Hasidim. So if you look at your phones, you have the Sefer Hasidim on your phone. Lo and behold, I'll go ahead. I'll put it up there. You have Sefer Hasidim on your phones. There you are. Guys, we're in business. We could see this. Guys on the screen, yeah? You could see this. You could see it, right? Let me make it a little bigger. Okay. So this is the Sefer Hasidim, Tov Nun Ches. Arsa de Gada, a bed of luck. Ein nichush. There's no inyan of nichush. There's no inyan of superstition. Mifnei ki yadu lahem sheyesh mazel hashoym la'adam. It's known lahem to them. There's a mazel that watches over a person. Kemo she'amru ruach hatuma shoyra al yadayim. There's the ruach tumah that's on our hands, and therefore we wash our hands. V'sachas hamita lo yitin adam meichel. You never keep food on the bed, guys. Why? Ki ruach hatumah sham. So we know there's a ruach hatumah on our hands. We know there's right when you wake up in the morning, you're not supposed to touch your eyes or anything. You're supposed to go ahead right away and wash. None one keeps food underneath their bed except you're in camp, right? in the locker, hidden away from everybody else, right? You don't keep food underneath your bed because of the ruach. This is all not nichish. It's known. When something is known, there's no nichish. So now he nems on the Sefer Hasidim that it's known there's a mazel for Adam, right? He nems on that there's a mazel for Adam. Guys, we learned it. Let's go back in time. Masechta Shabbos, Daf Nun Gimel Amid Beis, Rashi, Mazel, second line from the top, Mazle, Malach Shaloi, Umelit Salav. Mazel does not mean luck. Mazel means your Malach, Umelit Salav. And that Malach is your Melitz in Shemayim. That is your lawyer, that's your advocate in Shemayim. So it's very geschmack. The Darga Arsa Mazel over here means that's the place for your mazel. That's the place for your malach in Shemayim in your house, based upon Sefer Hasidim, as explained by Rashi in Daf Nun Gimel. Very nice, right, guys? Very geschmack. So that would answer and that has nothing to do with nichush. We have mazel, we have a darga, and we don't use it because that's where the malach sleeps. I mean, it's a little esoteric, certainly a little heebie-jeebie stuff, but and it was never used. So that's what the dargish is. So the dargish, we have machlokes. What exactly you do with the dargish? Do you go ahead and stand it up according to Reb Shimon Gamliel? You go ahead and unloop the loops and it falls down. But nonetheless, right now we're holding the dargish is what is the arsa de gada. Amalei Rabba back then Gemara 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down where it gets wide. Amalei Rabba Elameata. If you're telling me that a dargish is an arsa de gada that no one ever sleeps upon, Gabe Melech that nan, right? By Melech we learned in Masechta in Sanhedrin. Kala am mesuv malo aretz. When the Melech is being misabel, everyone sits on the ground. Who mesav ala dargish, and he sits on the dargish. Now, in other words, until he was misabel, no one slept in this bed, right? No one sat on this bed. Why? Because of the malach, the mazel. But now that the king is misabel, you sit on the bed. Okay, it doesn't make any sense. Until now you haven't, and now you are. Says the Gemara, Maskul Ravashi. What kind of kash is that? My kusha. Midi de avi achila v'shtiya. The other idna loy achlona v'loy ashkina. Now until this time, he didn't eat from other people or drink from other people. But hashta ichlilnu v'ashkina. But now the Sudas Havra, you're not allowed to eat your own food. You have to eat. So we see when it comes to Avelis, there are different halachas that you haven't been knowing until now. Until now, you ate your own food, you drank your own drink. The Sudas Havra, some person has to provide, other people have to provide. You can't eat your own food, you can't eat your own drink. So too overhead, you can go on a bed that never sat. So that's not a kasha. But you want a kasha, Ela'i kasha, you want a kasha. If you can tell me the dargish is an arsa de gada, here's your kasha. The Tanya, dargish ain't it tzarech l'kfaisai, the dargish, you don't have to go ahead and overturn it. You just have to go ahead and stand it up. The arsa de gada, amai ain't it tzarech l'kfaisai. If it's a arsa de gada, why don't you have to go ahead and turn it over? Patanya kaifa mitasai, loy mitaisable vadu kaifa. Not only his own bed, like this is Chayim, not only his own bed, elakol mita sheish lebetat paisai kaifa. Mashma everything, including what? The arsa de gada. Guys, it's arsa de gada is a bed. Irrelevant if people sleep in it or not, it's a bed. So if you're telling me the dargish is an arsa de gada, why in the world is it enough to stand it up? You should have to go ahead and turn it over because again, the Brisa says every mita in your house, mistama, including the dargish or the arsa de gada. Says my kasha. You think that's a kasha? Midi dahave amita hamyuchedes lekelim. Maybe it's like a mita that is designated for kelim, which we just mentioned in the Brisa above. The Tanya, if it was a mita that was miyuchid for kelim, ain't it sarach l'kfaisa? You don't have to go ahead and turn it over. If it's a miyuchid for kelim, you don't have to turn it over. So right now, we don't have any kashas. Right now, a dargish is what? Is an arsa de gada, and we understand why you're not turning it over because it's like the bed of kelim. Eli kash, you want a kasha? Why a dargish cannot be an arsa de gada, this mazel bed? Hakasha, here's your kasha. Dargish mater karbatov, the dargish should go ahead and take out its loops. And it falls by itself. If you're saying it's an arsa de gada, my karbitin islay. What karbitin does it have? It doesn't have loops. It does not have loops. So therefore, it can't be an arsa de gada. Kiyasa Ravim and Ravim showed off in Eretz Yisrael to Bavel Lamalei Ahum Rabbanon Rav Tachlifa Bamaravish May the Havishicha Veshuka Del Godoy. He said, I was commonly found in the streets, in the marketplaces of Gildoy are leather workers, guys. I would be finding the place of the leather workers. My dargish and said, what's a dargish? It's arsa ditzala. It's a leather bed. In other words, they used to fellas, their mattresses, they had some type of rope apparatus under that dead wood, and their rope apparatus going across like a lattice. This one had a leather going across. That's different. So it's not a arsa de gada. It's not a lucky thing. It's a leather thing. It's a leather thing. Itmanami am Rabbi Yirmiyah dargish sirugoy misaychay. A dargish, it's woven rope is inside of it. Mita siruga al gaba. Hey guys, look at my fingers. View my finger as here's my fingers like this, and there's holes. So going across, the dargish would have the ropes inserted in holes, whereas the mita would be a piece of wood. The wood, there wouldn't be a hole in the wood, it would be around it like this. It would be around it like this. And then the dargish was the leather was attached to this. And you would go ahead and undo the loops, and it would fall down. The leather would fall on the ground. Not that you, in other words, you don't stand up the dargish, but you go ahead and just untie the loops, and the leather falls to the ground. So Amar, put a vav in front of Amar. Amar Rav Yaakov Barach Amar Rav Asi, another halacha. Mita sheneklita yoitza Yoitzin Sukufa V'Dayoy. Guys, Nakliti Amita, we had Masechta Sukkah. Guys, picture a bed with two posts in the middle, draped across the top of the post to keep out as a piece of wood. And now you go ahead and put some covering on it to separate you from the flies and different stuff. So you have a canopy, in other words, but it's not like this. It's like this. So how do you stand it up? It's not It's not shaykh to go ahead and turn it over. You can't turn it over, right? It's not going to stand like this. You just go ahead on and you stand it up. Tan Rabbanan, Yoshin Gabe Kisei. If a person sleeps on top of a chair, Al Gabi Udunaya Gedoyla, a big machtesh, some type of mortar. Al Gabi Karka, Layotzi de Chavasi is not Yotzi the Chi of Kfiyas Amita. Rabbi Yochanan Shleikaim Kfiyas Amita, when it means not Yotza, you're not Kaim Kfiyas Amita. This is again, this is an example. There's a din of Kfiyas Amita. Just like there's a din as you can't cut your hair, just like there's a din of Kriya, this is a din in Hilchas Nevelis. Again, as we mentioned earlier, we're not knowing this, but again, this, according to the Gemara, this was the mitzvah. Tan Rabbanan. Mechabdin umar bitzin bebeisa avel. You go ahead and clean the floors and marbitzin, put like water on the floors, beis avel. Umadichin ka'arais, you go ahead and wash the dishes. V'kaisu tzluchas v'kitanas beis avel. Ve'im mevin es hamugmar. However, you would not bring mugmar v'es habasam in beis avel. It used to be in the old days, after a meal, they would have this. They would go ahead and burn incense and different types of atzei besamim and minei besamim. It would be good for the digestion, and they would burn that. But they wouldn't do that in the beis avel. Is really so they didn't do it in the Beis Avil, but Tani Bakapara, Mivarchin, you can't make a bracha, Loyal Mugmar, Loyal Besamim, not on Mugmar, that's incense, a Besamim with spices, Beis Avil. Bruche Hudloy Mavachin. You don't make the bracha, Masham Hasuye Maisi, but you would bring it. When it says you don't make a bracha, must be it's there. So you bring it, but you don't make a bracha on it. So like Kash, not a problem. Hubba Beis Avil. In a Beis Avil, where the body is there and you want to get rid of the smell of the body, then you go ahead. Wow, there are a few shots, and this is one I decided I'm going with. You want to get rid of the smell, so you bring in the mugmer and the besamim. Haba beis menachem, where they would go ahead and sitting to menachem. There you do not bring the mugmer. So we're speaking in two different locales. So again, those are lochas of kfiyas amita. So very geshmak. We have the sefer chasidim, arsa the gada about mazel. There's also baba kama toisvis hard to kill Rashi, hard to kill an adam. If you're a mu'id to an animal, you're not a mu'id to adam. Why? Because it's harder to kill a man because man has a mazel. An animal doesn't have mazel, a man has mazel. So that's the same concept of mazel to another. Because you don't have some what?
Same idea, no?
I don't know. I just thought that Shama. I don't know. There's no somebody say in Tisha. I guess not. I guess on Yontif you don't have somebody say on Yontif. Much Tisha was Avelis. You know this for a fact that you're suggesting.
Based on this Gemara.
Why? Where's the Avelis? Oh, Tisha B'Av. I thought you meant. No, I thought you Yom Kippur. No.
Tisha B'Av.
Why would you have some Tisha B'Av?
Matzah Shabbos. It starts on Matzah Shabbos.
Yeah.
We don't use some. We don't do.
Right. That's the reason. Right. Avelis. Right.
A guy has a mazel.
What?
A guy has a mazel. It says in Adam, it's talking about Jews completely Adam, or you're talking about it says it's easier to kill an animal because they don't have a mazel.
I would think a guy does have a mazel, and Sfara I would say does have mazel. The question is that the Gemara has a shaila baba kama if you're a mu'ud to a yid, if you're moved to a guy, so that would depend upon the shaila, right? The Gemara declares that. The Gemara declares that if you're moved to Adam, but they move to a guy, so that would depend upon the shaila. The fascinating Gemara again, just interesting, right? Interesting concept. Anyway, now, Ema lichin the base of Avel. Right, you can't go ahead and bring to the base of loy betavla. They will bring the sudas havrot to the base of. This is a very sensitive Gemara. We're going to see the sensitivity that the Chachamim had to that different people in Kal Yisrael. Fascinating Gemara. Ema lichin the base of loy betavla. This is a fancy dish for loy be askutla. That's some type of large bowl. For loy bekona, not a large basket. Elib salam. You go wicker basket, cheap wicker baskets. And we'll see why in the Gemara. On Cholamoid, you don't make the brechas avelim in the street. You would stand up in the shura. And menachmim would poichim es arabim. Right, and they would go ahead what menachmim, and the poit the rabbim. They would say to menachmim to go home. They used to go ahead and leave the meat in the street to go ahead and to make people cry more a little bit. On Cholamoid, you wouldn't do that. Shloi lahargalas a hesped, that you're not allowed to make a spedim on Chol Moed. So don't leave the mita again. We said there's kriya, but there's no availus on Chol Moed. Don't leave the mita where people could see it to be misared what the tsar. For loy shall noshim loylam if they cover. The woman you never put in the street, even mechayel because of covet, because of the covered isha. We're going to see the sensitivity of the Gemara. Tanrabana again. The Brisa elaborates upon the dinner of the Mishnah, guys. But Rishayna hayam elichim bebeisa avel, and when he came to Beis Avel, the Sudas Havra, what would they bring? Ashirim beklasa shel kesef. The Ashirim, they would bring mamish baskets of silver, b'shel zav and gold. V'aniyim b'salei nitzarim shel arava. Kalufa, they would bring, just wicker baskets from arava, willows. Not willows. Arava is not willows. It's what? Reeds. No, the other ones are willows. Myrtles. Willows? What's so? What are Hadassah? Myrtle. Okay. Myrtle. Okay, so this is they would bring. It was like stripped. They were embarrassed because they went ahead. They couldn't afford to bring in a fancy basket. That's going about bikurim also, guys. Bikurim also, right? That they for niyim they would take it, and the other ones they would leave it. But by aniyim misbayisham and aniyim misbayish. His skino they made a takana. Sheyu akol meviim besalin nitzarim shel arava klufa. They wouldn't use fancy baskets. Everyone would bring the same cheap man's poor wicker basket. If they kavod shalaniyim because they covered niyim. Again, the sensitivity. Tan Rabbana, continuing that theme. Barishayna hayam mashkim bebeisa avel ashirim b'schuchas levana. They would use fine glass. Vaniyim b'schuchas tzuvuya, inferior glass. By aniyim ispaishim, they became embarrassed. Skinu sheyakol mashkim b'schuchas tzvuyim nifnei kavod shalaniyim. They dafka all use that inferior glass. Barishayna hayam migalin pnei ashirim. They would go ahead. And by the Levaya, guys would uncover the face of the mace. They uncover the face of the mace. And they would cover the face of the niyim. The Ran says, I have written over here, they would uncover the face for Loima, Pliny shepon of Yafais, Ushmeinais, so and so's face is beautiful and fat. Eich techlenu hatulas, how could the worms eat it up? Right? That's what they would say. In other words, I had a Rebbe in 7th grade. Amamish said, I remember Harold, you out? No. You and Rabbi Kenningsberg class or the other class? No. You and Wadowski? No. I don't know if you remember this. I still remember saying, goes, eat a potato, the worms will have more to eat. 7th grade, you're 12 years old. 12. Listen, he must have been a good teacher. That's the only thing I remember from him. 0. Eat another potato, the worms will have more to eat. So basically, that's what the saying over here. The Ran says, look how beautiful he is. Look how fat he is. Again, remember, in those days, fat was a sign of ashiris, that people were corpulent. It was a good thing, right? It was a good thing. So they what? Okay, so it's very good kasha. I had this kasha. The Gemara in Hurya says the lashon is Avrami. It says you're not allowed to stakel b'pnei ames. You're not to be mistakel, meaning you're not allowed to gaze. In other words, to take a quick glance, you could to look away. But to go ahead and mamish, go ahead and looking at that, you can't do. That's the difference between histaklus, gazing at, or a quick look. That's the difference between the two. Okay, so initially, and if they show him if they they were always hungry, so their face, their pallor was dark. They were embarrassed. The reason we cover Bizman Azed, the face of all the Mason guys, is for this. We had it because of this reason. Cover Aniyim. We want everyone to be. We had the Gemara in Tainis. Baruch just said. Remember, the girls used to go out in Shiloh and dance with what? With Shula. They all would borrow. You wouldn't be able to say that who was rich and who was not rich. You weren't able to tell. Ashirim b'dargish. They would take the Ashirim out in our dargish that we mentioned. The Aniyim. The klicha with some type of, again, machlokes what's going on, but Rashi just says mita shel mesim. By anim is by yoshim. They wanted a little better, transportation. Everyone should go out and this wooden little thing, right? You go to every kadisha, these wooden things they carried at base. The cholim me'ayin would die. They would have a putrid smell. They had people who had intestinal disorder, so they had putrid smell. So what would they do? They would go ahead and put mugmer. They put incense that and the people who were Cholim Yayin when they were alive were already embarrassed. Well, that this is what's going to happen. It's Pirish. When we die and they do this, everyone will know that we're Cholim Yayin. In other words, in their lifetime, they're worried about people are going to say after they die, because it's going to be a siman. If you're going to put mugmer over there, it's going to be a siman that what you were Cholim Yayin. So eskinu sheimenichim tachas hakol. They made a takana that they took mugmer under everyone, every mace, no matter what the mace was, no matter what disorder, what disease they died from. Again, the sensitivity, they would put mugmer under what? That as well. Because of the what? The sensitivity to the people who have intestinal disorders when they were alive. Now, a woman who died when she was a nida is an avatum, and she touches his tameh. So that what they would do is, if any kalim, they would be toivel. And all the nidas chayas are embarrassed. When we die, everyone's going to know that we would need this. Why? Because they're going to go ahead right in. And hiskinu she matbilin al kol gabi kol anoshim. Like for the nidas chayas, they would go ahead. All women, they would go ahead and be toivel. Why? Because it was you couldn't tell. It was an amalgamated din across the board. The same svara, the zavim what had a flow from their body, mesim. But yazavim chaim is by yashim. They're going to say, oh, everyone's going to know that when we die, and they go ahead and they toivel, they're going to know that we were zavim. Hiskinu shemat bilan gabe akol mefik find the shol zavim chaim. B'rishayna hayatzas ames kashal lekroivav yoisa mimisasai. Guys, this is such a favorite thing. Listen to this. Initially, the funeral costs for the shrouds, the tachrichin, was so expensive that they would literally run away because they couldn't afford the tachrichin. Boy, Rabbi Gamliel came along. Rabbi Gamliel, the naga kalas roish ba'atzmoi. He was noy kalas roish. The yotza b'kli pishtan, and he went out b'kli pishtan. He went out, and now he went out b'kli pishtan. That was his takana. If you look at Tosfos, the no kalas roish ba'atzmo, shetziva came b'shas petirasai. He was mitzava at the time of his petira that they should bury him in what? Cheap kli pishtan. V'yesh mefarshim le'echem v'bnei beisai b'chayav, that he was mitzvah pishtan in one of the people in his house that died. V'loshen ba'atzmai mashma kapirish rishon. When it says ba'atzmo, it's mashma was directly to him rather than what? To another individual. I believe they bury in what they made from linen. I don't know. They didn't have an oven, I guess. What? Moed Katan. It's something. Okay. They had at one time. They did. V'nogu ha'ma'akrav lotzes b'kli pishnan. Omra papa ba'idna noy galma afila b'tzroda barzuzei, to bury even in cannabis. Barzuzei, that's worth of zuz. Now, I did a little research. I found it fascinating that this whole idea of pishtan, like why linen. So there's a Gemara. The Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Kuf Beis, says the following: Kol she'omrim b'fnei hameis yodeya actually sakal abasa. Anything you go ahead and say in front of a mace, they hear until the basar is gone. In other words, the mace, the ruach cannot leave the body. It's entrapped in the body as long as the basar is there, as long as the goof is there. Good. And that's, we had a Gemara in Brachas Daf Yomi Moed about two spirits that were speaking to each other. Shayda Olam, a real, right. One of them said they can't leave because they're in a machzela shel konim. They're entrapped in a machzela shel konim, right? In other words, even that, meaning that the machzela shel konim, it impeded the decomposition of the body because it was solid. So it seems that the mila of pishtan is that pishtan falls apart quickly, which allows the body then to decompose in the ground. So Dafka, Reb Gamliel said pishtan, Dafka pishtan, because of that mila, that it goes ahead and it rots quickly, it decays, and then it goes ahead, and now the exposure of the body in the ground, the body will decompose. So it's a very interesting that Dafka pishtan wasn't just anything he took, he Dafka took pishtan. Okay, very.
How the stories here about the exhumed bodies and their whole?
There are the tzaddikim. Again, there are tzaddikim that are not. They don't need the kapara. The svara is like this. Again, I think if you're holy enough, I'll tell you pshat. I think this is a mistake pshat. I told this myself over many times. My Rebbe met in 1947. He met a Jew in New York, and that Jew he knew from Vilna. And that Jew was a total communist. He was a total communist. He was Jewish, but you can imagine a total communist. He didn't believe in God. The Soviets were building a railroad through the Vilna cemetery. And they wanted to move the Gros Keva. And it was big news because the Gra is in Lithuania. There's a statue of him there. He's the most famous person in the history of Lithuania. It doesn't take much, but I'm saying, and there was going through, and it was a big deal. And he was a reporter for a newspaper, this communist, and he was covering the exhumation of the Gra. They opened up the grave. Now the Gra was nifter in 1797. 1947 is 150 years exactly later. 150, 1797 plus 150 is 1947. They opened the grave. His cheeks were rosy red, and he was smiling. They closed the grave up and left him right there. And this guy, this communist, he became frum overnight. That's pshat. Gadol tzaddikim misasa yetz mecharem. Many people can be makar people in their life. The Gra can be makar a person 150 years after he's dead. So what's pshat? L'chayra ki afrat v'lafa toshav. One has to decompose to get. That's only if your body is a vessel of, if not. Meaning you led your life and your body is a goof. It's a physical thing. Because our life, what's our job in life? Our job in life, you can look at it, is it for our body to go ahead and impose itself on the neshama, or vice versa, the neshama to impose itself on the body? For me, I can't speak for you, but why is it difficult to leave the world? Because your neshama got used to the gashmias that you're here. It got used to it already, right? For someone of that magnitude, fellas, the body is nothing. So therefore, it's not a problem. The ruach can leave and go and come as it will because it's one piece of gufnias, one piece of ruchnias. I think that's the right hezbollah.
Simple. If you live a life of offer in this world, then you're up with Misasa. But you live a life of Torah.
That's your drasha.
I'm saying,
again, that's your drasha here. But again, that would explain that. So this again, this whole Indian of ruchis and spirits and everything, but pishtin, right? What? This is Tanya. I told you I found Sefer Hasidim. I'm a changed man. I wouldn't know if Tanya. I'm Rav Papa. Only Tanya knows I'm free. I'm Rav Papa. Ein moed b'fnei a Talmud. There's no din of chol moed b'fnei a Talmud chacham. Meaning you can be masped a Talmud chacham chol moed. The chol shkin Chanukah Purim madach chol moed, which is the Raisa. You can certainly Chanukah Purim, which is the Rabbanan. You can. Vani milu b'fanav. That's after the Talmud chacham is there. It's not in front of him, not. In is really so. For Rav Kahana, Saftel Rav Zvid min Adoi b'Pum Nara. Rav Kahana was maspid Rav Zvid min Adoi in the town of Pum Nara, and he wasn't in front of him. And Rav Papa Yom Shmua Have. It was the day that he heard about it. Who could be fun of dummy? When it's the day of Shmua, we hear about it. It's considered fun of. You can go at many times. You see on Chalamoy, they say b'fun of the heta for being a hesped is because Talmud Chacham b'fun of. We had Moshe Maruch that we were maspid in that. Talmud Chacham b'fun of. Amula. Hesped aleh. Now, hesped usually means a eulogy. We also use it in terms of some physical manifestation of mourning. So hesped aleh, when you hit yourself on your chest, that is on your heart, that's called a hesped, and we have a proof to it. Ichsiv al shadayim seiftim, on your chest you seif it. Tipuach, the lashon of mitapeach is biyad, is with the hand. So that's either hand to hand or hand to thigh. Kilos, we use lashon kilos is beregel, you stamp on the ground. Hamakalis, if a person stamps on the ground, like kalis besandal, you shouldn't use a sandal elamino. Sandal seems to be made of hard leather, minnow soft leather. So use a sandal. You shouldn't use a sandal if nay hasakana, because it may turn over and break your foot. There are other pshatim. Rak says do not use either one. The other pshat is the opposite. You can use a minnow, but you can't use a sandal. Different pshat. Since he nods his head, shuvein menachemim. That's it. In other words, he's letting you go. Rishon Leisha Vetzloi, Ein Menachem Rishon Leisha Vetzloi. He's giving you the sign that get out of here. From Rabbi Yochanan, Hakol Chayav Ma'amim Fnei Nasi. Everyone's chayav to go ahead and stand up in front of the Nasi. Chutz me'evel v'chayla, they're not required to. From Rabbi Yochanan, l'cholam lehem shvu chutz me'evel v'chayla. All of them you say sit except the evel v'chayla. Other people say it's nikadiyami, or else if he doesn't have to stand, certainly don't sit. I'm Rabbi Yehuda Marav. Abel yam yishayin asal lecha lechem mishaloi. An abel the first day he can eat lechem from himself. But remember we learned that many halachas from Yecheskel. It says v'lechem anoshim lo'isaychal. Right, the lechem anoshim you should not, from other people you should eat. Mashma what? Mashma that a novel, right? Novel has to eat. Rabbi Yosef Mechalfi said the Sayla Dodi, they would go ahead and switch Sudas. So there's Sully once he mentioned a Meshech Chachma today. I looked it up in Parshas Vayechi. Fascinating Meshech Chachma. It really speaks about philosophically about very, very deep. What's the inyan of, as only Rabbi Simcha can explain, what's the whole inyan of not eating someone else's food? Why dafka avelis? Why can't you eat your own food? Basically, it's a lot hard lashon. That's why I didn't put it on the screen. He says the following. He says that when a person loyalenu loses a loved one and is in a state of avelis, it lends to question one's existence. You think about it. It tends to, what? You go to a cemetery, right? You go to a cemetery and you look, people dead, and you start thinking like, what's life about? Like, what's the purpose of life? It's a very good question. It's a very, very good question. The answer to the question is we know that as long as Hashem created the world, because Hashem is a native, Hashem wants to do good, and we this is a Ramchal in the Das Tfunis, we emulate a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Ahu Rachum Afat Rachum. Ahu Chanun Afat Chanun. We emulate a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Our job in this world is supposed to be what? We're supposed to go ahead and emulate Hashem. We're supposed to go ahead and now. And then you get your what we call Elam Haba. So if Hashem is so good, give us Elam Haba. You're a native, give us Elam Haba, and we don't have to go through its existence. So the Svarim speak out that there's something called Nama Dikisufa. I heard it b'Shem Zayah. He's mentioned in the Medrash. Nama Dikisuf means bread of embarrassment. No one wants something for nothing. Hashem put in us something really unique. No one wants something for nothing. We want to earn it. We want to earn it. If you're given something as a gift, you never enjoy it as much as you got it yourself. I'll give you an example. Let's say someone gives you a sports car and you can buy the sports car yourself. Either you earn the money to buy the sports car, it's yours. You did it. That's Nama Dikisufa. So now, as we go ahead and question our existence, right? What are we told? Hashem gives us, you have to eat bread from somebody else. Your existence is what? Nama Dikisufa. Now you're taking from somebody. It's a reminder, this is a Meir Simcha on a very deep level, beautiful level. You know what? What are you doing? You're taking something from someone. Now you want to remind you what your existence is. Your existence is not to take something from someone. You're questioning your existence. This is the purpose of your existence, not to take something from someone. That's why we go ahead. I'll tell you what it's good. Malcolm, it's the end of Parshas Vayechi. A few psukim at the end of Parshas Vayechi. That's Ramei Simcha. Ramei Simcha, like Soinim Atanas Yichya. That's Baal Madregas, right? There are people like that. There's shyless about that, but Bisman Azeh, I heard that there's a head for taking Matanas. Soinim Atanas Yichya, Sheinim Atanas Yichya.
I take. Just give us and take it.
Okay, anyway. Very good shot. Says the Rabbi. From Rabbi Yehuda Amarav, Meis Be'er, now you have a small shtetl, right? So Meis Be'er, Kol B'nei Yer Asur B'Siyas Malacha. In a small shtetl, someone dies, that's it, everyone stops working. Rav Avnuna Ikloi the Rumsa, the Dar Umsa, I guess, the Rusa, he came there, Shama Kol Shipura, the Shafa Yod Kol Shaifa, that someone died, and Rav Huna Suah Chaza, Hanach Inshi, the of the Avidas, so I'm going to work. Amalahu, so Rav Huna said, Lahabi Hanach and Nashim Shamta, they should be in Shamta, they should be excommunicated. Why? Is not a dead person in the city. What are you doing working? Everyone's got to come to the Levaya. So they told him, Chavurasa Ika B'masa. There's a Chevra Kedisha. There's a Chevra, in other words, they're different Chaburis. This Chabur is going to take care of them. Amalahu said Rav Nuna Yachi, Shari Lachu, it's Mutta, either Mutta go to work or Shari took up the Shamta. Rabbi Yehuda Marav, call him Kasha al Mesa Yosem Midai. Anyone who goes ahead and is misabel over mace more, al mace achahu. But I'm reading this wrong. Call him Kasha al Mesa Yosem Midai al mace achahu boiche. He's going to end up crying for another mace. To illustrate this, a very, very sad story. So there was this woman, Davi B'Shavisa Davhuna, that was in the neighborhood of Huna. Habili Shiva b'nei Mace. She had seven sons, and Mace Chad Menaya, one of them died. She was crying tremendous amount over this space. Rav Huna sent the following message: you don't do this. She didn't listen to him. He sent her. You listen to me, great. You're going to have to go ahead and provide shrouds for another mace. Well, Mace Kula, they all died, all the children. The Saif Amalei, Tamish Zavdasla Navshech, you're going to have to end up out, and for yourself. With Misa, and she died. Al Tifkul Mace, Veloy Tanuduloi, Al Tifkul Mace Yosem Idai, Al Tanuduloi Yosem Mikashir. Okay, it's sad. Shleisha Yam Labachi, Bishiva Lehespid, Ushleisham the Gayos with Bispiris, 30 days for pressed clothing and haircuts. You can't veilach after 30 days. Amakadosh Baruch Hu, Iatem Rachim Bayosim Mimeni. Are you a bigger Rachmanis than me? Hashem says 3, 7, and 30. Bachi Lahailach, everyone cry intensely for one who leaves. Amrav Yehuda Lahailach, what is Hailach? Hailach Leibanim, cry intensely for someone who leaves this world, their children. Yeshua and Levi Leazal Bailey will not go to Beis Abel. El Lamanda Azal Leibane, the one who went without children. The Tzib Bachal Lahailach. Kila Yashav Oid. For us, Aretz Maladato. Rav Huna Amad Zeshava Avera B'Shanavav. It says Kilo Yashiv Oid Veroas Eretz Maladato. Rav Huna says that's the person who does an Avera and repeats it. Right? Rav Huna Tamei Dam Rav Huna Kimish Ava Adam Avera B'Shanavoy. Since the person does performs an Avera and repeats it, Hutrulay, it's mutter for him. Fragment Hutrulay Salkat Aitach. Alaim and Nasas like Heta becomes Heta. You know, Rav Yisrael Slanta, right? The second time is the Heta, and the third time it's a mitzvah. Third time it's a mitzvah. Rab Levi says Rab Levi. Avol Shleishes Yom Rishonim Yireh Satz Makila Cherv Merachas Leben Shtei Kseifav should view himself as if what? There's a sword between the shoulder blades. Mishleisha at Shiva Kilo Menachas like Kenegdai. It's opposite him. Became obvious. Kavela Kilo Iveris Kenegdai B'Shuk. This is pantsing in the industry. Thank everyone for listening. Shkaya.